manipulative, sick, disturbed, crazy, manic, mad. These are all terms that you have likely heard in your life. Maybe you've used them yourself and you've called somebody else unstable, sick, right? Maybe this is something that you were called at some point in your life. Whatever the situation, these terms tend to be extremely derogatory. But for the victims of individuals who are unstable and disturbed, it doesn't really seem like a bad term. The reality is that for many people who struggle with disturbed family members and dynamics, it's easy to call them these names, whether that's out of resentment or hatred, anger, whether that's out of, internalized emotions and thoughts that has been happening about this family member or person you are with. The terms can sometimes describe the totality of the situation. So whenever I have a client see me for the first time, they may say something to me in conversation like, my uncle is absolutely crazy. They may also say, my mother's disturbed. She's sick and she creates a lot of problems. She's mad. Anytime I hear these terms, I know that the client is not being derogatory or in any way disrespectful or disregarding. But what they are trying to do is communicate to me the intensity of the situation that they are in. And sometimes this is the only way to get this across, is to use these particular words. Now, Philip Zimbardo, he's awesome. He's been doing a lot of research on the psychology of evil, on the Lucifer effect. He has written books on this as well. I've posted them in the description box for you. What he does is he really tries to zone in on how the world kind of functions and goes around day after day. What is it that creates negative behavior, evil behavior, dark behavior, very poor decisions? He did an article in the past about psychology and mental illness. And what he says, I absolutely like. He says, madness is the sufferer's unintentional disruption of society's norms, of reasonable and normal actions. Let me go back over that. I'm going to point out some words to you. It's the sufferer's unintentional disruption of society's norms. They are not intending necessarily to be problematic. Madness, mental illness, having a disorder that can cause an individual to behave in ways that they most likely should not be behaving in, right? Mental illness or some kind of a mental health condition or sickness that can not only change behavior, but also change how the individual is thinking. These are scenarios to describe how very unintentional these kind of individuals are. They may disturb you in intense ways, but they may not be intentionally behaving in a way that would make them sick, unstable, or just, being tortured by a condition that they cannot control. So then where does that leave the family members, the individuals who are clearly disturbed, but the things that they do is intentional. The things that they do are farsighted or lopsided, I'll put it that way. The things that they do are unstable. What do we do about that category of individuals? Well, they are still disturbed. I truly believe that. They are still disturbed, but they're disturbed in a different way. This is not the unintentional disruption of society's norms. This is not the unintentional infliction of pain because I have a mental health problem. It's I have a disturbance of conduct, a disturbance of emotions, and a disturbance of how I calculate things in my mind. And so therefore, I have become a problem for you. Now, this kind of a family member may experience what we call confabulations. confabulations. Confabulations are basically false overviews of reality without a desire to deceive. So basically it's remembering things that have happened in the past, but not intentionally trying to deceive. It's a skewed perception of reality. It's an incorrect way that family member, that person, remembers the past. There's no desire to lie. There's no desire to, mislead. But the confabulation is a barrier to correct communication, because the individual, the family member, really does engage in and circulates false statements. There's no intent to create a problem. They just don't see the past the way that it really is. There's also false memories and lies that can happen with these individuals. False memories are basically, memories that the individual has that never happened in the first place. It didn't happen at all. There's no way to misconstrue it. It's not a confabulation where there's false statements, that there's a skewed perception of the past. False memories are false memories. It never happened. And it's not a lie. It's not a lie, nor is it a misinterpretation of fact. Somehow go back in your mind and you can pull details as if it did happen. Those kind of family members are very scary, because you don't know which way they're going to go. You don't know how their mind is going to perceive reality or remember reality from the past. There's also word salad and tangentiality that happens. Maybe you have a conversation with this family member and everything they say kind of feels like a tossed salad, right? They start here and they don't end there, but they go another way, right? They give you an idea, then they go off and talk about something else, and somehow they incorrectly and really oddly connect the dots, at least they think they are. Confusion and disorganization in how they think and process the world. They also may talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And they don't know how to take a breath. They don't know how to let you in. They really don't care to let you in. They really just don't know how to stop, because their disturbed mind is in a place that is not down here with the rest of us. When I was working in a community mental health center many years ago as a beginning therapist, I done group therapy with a variety of individuals who had schizophrenia. And one of the things that I learned in this community mental health center is that individuals with schizophrenia or psychosis, sometimes dissociative identity disorder, they really do feel and are very far removed from their reality. And a lot of times, especially when they are in the middle of their illness, right? The illness has just come full force and it's very clear that they are struggling. I would experience word salad from these clients. I would also experience tangential. How do you say tangential? Tangential. Okay. I think I got it this time. I would experience word salad, and I would experience tangential speech where, they're just going on and on and on and on, and they're not psychologically or even visually aware that you want to get in. There's also relational aggression that happens with these individuals. They push the wrong buttons. They step on people's toes. They are disrespectful. They are inconsiderate. They are bullies. They are manipulative. They are triangulating. And they may also be calculating as well. If you feel like you have a family member like this, or you know somebody like this, you want to keep watching. Let's jump in and talk about what's happening here. When you have an individual who's disturbed, they may not be mentally ill to the place where, to the point where they are unable to control themselves. They are unable to control their mind. They may be mentally ill in the sense that there's something going on under the surface and you can't pinpoint what it is. You just know that there's a darkness about it. There is something here that confuses you about it. You don't know how to communicate with it, and it makes you feel like you just need to be on guard with them. Right? I've been there before in my past, so I totally get how you may be feeling. These kind of individuals may have multiple situational factors and forces that creates this kind of disturbed character that they have. Maybe they grew up in a house where they were abused. Maybe they had a situation along the line where they developed PTSD. Maybe they are individuals who are just disturbed and was born that way to begin with, and life situations kind of push them even further into their disturbed way of behaving and existing in the world. Whatever the case, there often tends to be situational forces and factors that get in the way. There's also false memories that can also be really difficult for you, because the person may talk to you as if these various things happened in their life. Being abused and neglected, having PTSD, being married in the past, having really bad parents, going to a really good school, having tons of money, being in contact with celebrities, going to therapy, dating multiple people. Everything that they tell you about their past may not be true. Why? Because of the existence of false memories. They talk about it like it's a real memory. They engage with you like it's a real memory. Don't be fooled. It's a fantasy. It's a false memory. They may actually feel that they are very much in reality, that they are grounded in reality. But the truth of the matter is, it's a false memory. There's a such thing known as false memory syndrome, and it's basically a term to identify those individuals who claim that they have been sexually abused, but there is absolutely no recollection of that from anybody else in the family. There is no awareness that the memory is false. Facts may be so misconstrued that incorrect information is being given. And there may be a court hearing and maybe some kind of investigation that doesn't show any signs of being sexually abused. There was a case, and I might as well bring this up because research is also, pretty tight-lipped when it comes to false memories because it's so controversial. But there was research done on recovered memories. Sigmund Freud had a lot to do with the thoughts around false memories and recovered memories somewhere in the late 80s. And so there was an incident that happened with the McMartin preschool. And unfortunately, some of the staff there were accused of sexually violating some of the children there. And what came out after an investigation was that it never happened. It was a false memory that the individual had. And so false memory syndrome is something that continues to happen. It's not like it was just an 80s thing and it doesn't happen anymore. There are many clients, I'm sure, that I have seen and my colleagues have seen who have dealt with false memories. And it's really difficult because you can't get to the meat of the issue because the reality didn't exist in the first place. Recollections that are factually incorrect can also happen with false memories. It may feel like lies or seem like lies, but it could just be incorrect information. There's no correct recollections of reality whatsoever. There may also be a perception of mental health that is skewed. There may be a perception of mental health that is skewed. So here's an example of this. Let's say, for example, your father has always been a disturbed individual. Everything that he's done is disturbing. He's been abusive. He's been a bully. He's been a road rager. He's been an individual who engages in road rage. He's also been an individual who, just walks around with these defenses up all the time. He's very insecure, very resentful, and very irate. All he needs is somebody to drop a pin and he's going to explode. These kind of individuals often have a skewed perception of mental health. They feel like that's not me. Somebody who's mentally ill is talking to themselves, seeing things that are not there, saying quote unquote crazy things, right? Saying things that don't make sense or add up, and that's not me, so I'm fine. So there may be a skewed perception of their own mental health need. There may also be disorganization of thoughts and emotions, and that just basically means that there's no structure, there's no organization. Thoughts are scattered and racing, and there may be rumination. There may also be emotions that are all over the place, right? And we call that labile emotions. So there may be a lot of disorganization. There may also be accusatory behavior that is threatening, dark, and evil. You did this, and don't play with me again, because if you do, I'm going to A, B, and C. There may also be threats, right? and threats to your life, threats to your safety, threats to your reputation. The list goes on. These kind of individuals are disturbing and unstable. So what is it that happens here, and how do I deal with this? I'm sure you're wondering that. We're going to talk about that live on Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So join me then. But let me tell you how this impacts you. Okay? Basically, you can develop over time what we call guilt wounds and fear of abandonment wounds. When you are living a life with a family member, a parent, a sibling who is disturbed, anything is likely to happen in your world. You may have to stand your ground, put up a boundary. You may have to avoid being harmed, which means you're going to have to take actions that are maybe not comfortable or preferable. You may witness multiple fights, arguments, confrontations. You may be the center of family chaos, right? All of these things can happen around you as you develop over time, and maybe it's still happening to you as an adult. It can create a guilt wound and a fear of abandonment wound that could take a very long time to heal. There may also be this lack of information and this lack of open communication regarding that family member's health issues. So as well as I do, in very complicated family dynamics, not everybody talks about mental health problems or behavioral and emotional disturbances. And so that individual who is clearly disturbed either minimizes or somehow internalizes what's going on, while everybody else around them does the same thing. And when that happens, there is no reality to explore, to manage, to deal with, to look at, right? It's like you're totally ignoring the fact that there's a disturbed person in the family. And so there's no open communication. There's no validation of your experiences, right? And there's also a lack of information. So you may not know exactly what you're dealing with. And that's a scary thing, right? There's also unpredictability with these individuals. This is why you need to have open communication in your family about this disturbed individual. But there's a lot of unpredictability with the individual who's disturbed. And there may also be unpredictability with other family members too, because they don't want to acknowledge that there's a problem there. So the unpredictability could arise from, trying to cover things and trying to keep things a secret and, really trying to play up that person who's disturbed and make them look like they're okay. So there's a lot of unpredictability that can happen there. There's also a greater prevalence of you having your own mental health conditions, right? Because if you're dealing with a disturbed individual, especially if it's a parent and especially if it's a sibling, then you're around that behavior for how many hours a day, how many days a week, right? And so that can disturb you in the long run. And you can also have feelings of disorientation. Where am I? Who am I? What are we? What's going on here? And those feelings can come up multiple times in your life, multiple times in your relationships, That disorientation that you feel could lead you to experience dissociation, depersonalization, and derealization. It can also lead to you having really difficult relationships where bits and pieces of your own personality is unknown to you and the other person. Join me live on Friday and Saturdays as I continue to discuss the psychology of. And join me this Friday. Okay, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Disturbing individuals really do disturb you. My grandmother used to say all the time, disturbed people disturb you. So we're going to delve a little bit deeper. I hope to see you then. Bye-bye.